Hi, welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. This is live from Ottawa. When we come back, we've got some real special guests for you today. Some really good video, and I can't wait to share it with you moments from now.
The Prime Minister lied, and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like and subscribe to the station. We appreciate it. I know I said I'd never wear a baseball cap on the show, but we need to show the merchandise. This is a great hat. Now, this is the kind of hat I will wear. I'm not going to wear a hat every day on the show. You know, I'm still a devotee of the jacket and tie. Sometimes you got to be a little casual, and that's what we're doing today. Now, my special guest, of course, is Jimmy Dore. I did the interview this morning because he was on the way to the airport. He's coming to Montreal. So I got him on the way to the airport. It's a great interview, though. I really want you to see this. And I've got a great clip from what Pierre Poilievre is doing now. He's putting out videos, and all I can say is they remind me of Mayor Tommy Shanks, and I'll explain that a bit later. But they're effective. But it's a different Poilievre, a whole different persona, and it's quite fascinating. Before I get there, though, I want to mention that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is saying foreigners who work to undermine the rights of Americans should not enjoy the privilege of traveling to our country, whether in Latin America, Europe, or elsewhere. The days of passive treatment for those who work to undermine the rights of Americans are over. For too long, Americans have been fined, harassed, and even charged by foreign authorities for exercising, listen, their free speech rights. Today, I am announcing a new visa restriction policy that will apply to foreign officials and persons who are complicit in censoring Americans. Free speech is essential to the American way of life, a birthright over which foreign governments have no authority. He should have mentioned Canada, because Canada is stripping people of not only human rights, but especially free speech rights. Have you heard how the CBC had a YouTube station taken down because they just didn't like it? Nothing in particular. They didn't like the format. CBC has no right to be telling anybody. They are not the arbitrator of truth and untruth, of justice and injustice, of truth and lies. CBC has no authority, but they know they have because Mark Carney's in their pocket. So, without further ado, I want to get to this interview. This is wonderful, and I want you to enjoy this as much as I did. This is Jimmy Dore, of course, fantastic comedian, but he's also a fantastic pundit, fantastic YouTube host. This is the guy who speaks truth. He was a Democrat all his life, lost faith in the Democratic Party during the COVID pandemic because of lockdowns and COVID mandates. He is a free speech advocate, and I love the guy. And we're going to be at his show Sunday in Ottawa. If you want tickets, if you're in Ottawa, if you're in the area, buy tickets. There's still tickets available for his show June the 1st, Sunday in Ottawa. The information will be in the description. Without further ado, welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard. It's a real pleasure to have Jimmy Dore with me this morning. He's on the way to Detroit from Toledo, and he's coming to Ottawa on June the 1st. And we need to sell the tickets out for this show because this is something you've got to see. You've got to hear Jimmy in action, because you might watch his show, and I do 2 or 3 times a day, but you've got to see his comedy show, because believe it or not, before this man was a political pundit, he was a famous comic. And I don't think people forget that, Jimmy, but your show has had such incredible influence, and you're still doing the comedy routine. How do you keep this pace up with the shows? And you do 2 or 3 shows a day on YouTube and Rumble. How do you do it?
It's starting to beat me down, David. That's what's starting to happen. it's tough. It's tough. Doing the stand-up comedy. I love doing stand-up comedy. It's my first love, and I do the YouTube show because it's just something that's inside me that I got to get out, and I can't. The status quo. It's always been my pleasure to poke holes in the status quo. I think that's what all real comedians are supposed to do. And for some reason, I'm very popular in Canada. And so I love going to Canada. Right now, I'm on my way to Montreal. And I don't know if that's my horrible attempt at a French accent. And then we go to Toronto. And then first time ever in Ottawa. So, and everywhere we go in Canada usually sells out. So I'm very excited to go back to Canada. Uh, the Canadians, I love the Canadians and they love me. So it's a match made in heaven.
That was my next question. So this is your first time in Ottawa, and obviously you have very positive feelings about Canada, and I think Canadians have very, very positive feelings about you. But wanted to
Can I
ask,
tell you,
go ahead.
David, can I tell you the last time I was in Canada, I actually bumped into Justin Trudeau.
No
Um,
kidding.
yeah, I was at a meeting of guys who saw the Barbie movie Alone. And there he was.
Well, I I wanted to ask you about since the pandemic, there's been such a unity amongst free speech people. And I think it brought together liberals and conservatives. I always considered myself a small c conservative libertarian, and you were always a Democrat. But I've made so many new friends since the pandemic. Naomi Wolf being one. Somebody I never thought I would see anything in common with, and we have so much in common now. She's been on my show many times to talk about free speech and free assembly. But do you think the pandemic, with all of its lockdowns and all of its authoritarian measures, brought together people from the left and the right, conservatives and liberals, because they had a common denominator, that being a love for free speech and freedom of assembly, which the government, the state was trying to take that away. Do you think that brought a unity amongst a lot of people who otherwise might never have gotten to know each other?
Oh, 100%. I considered myself a lefty my entire life. And it's funny that, so I've always been for free speech because lefties have always been for free speech. And now that's considered right wing. It's amazing. I was always for bodily autonomy and my body, my choice. And that was always a lefty position. Now that's considered right wing if you reject if you exercise bodily autonomy and you reject an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies. I mean, I've never experienced bigger fascism. And when people talk about fascism, there's no bigger fascism than being forced to take an experimental medical treatment with no long-term studies, or you can't go to work, or you can't go to school, or you can't travel. That's the definition of fascism. And then if you protested against that, they debanked you. I mean, that was 100% fascism. So yes, these positions that I normally or an anti-war. I'm anti-war, and I was against the Ukraine war, just like I was against the Syrian war, just like I'm against the Israel-Gaza war, just like I was against the Afghanistan war and Iraq and Libya. But now that's considered right wing. So yeah, it's amazing how the left and the right, if you stay true to your values, have been brought together through this kind of fascist authoritarian implementation. So yeah, I've got a lot of friends. Now I'm friendly with Tucker Carlson. Didn't expect that in a million years. I used to make fun of Tucker Carlson on my show for 10 years, and then he and I started to see eye to eye on the Syrian war, and I couldn't believe it. But yes, there it is. And of course, we share a lot of common values, and that's the game that the establishment plays. They want us to pick a side. They want us to be tribal. They want us to pick a team, red or blue, and then they want us to hate each other. And that's called divide and conquer, and it's worked forever. And people are waking up to that, just like you woken up to it. Naomi Wolf, I've woken up to it. I think Tucker Carlson and those types of people. So that's the message of my show. It's not left, right anymore. It's right against wrong. It's top down. It's us against the establishment.
So I think that's why so many people are listening. I had a real epiphany over foreign wars because there was never a U.S. foreign war I didn't support at one time in my life. I served overseas with NATO. I was a Air Force officer. But now I'm saying, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? So we continue these wars, and who's benefiting? Who's benefiting? And you point out all the time, the spending, this military so-called defense spending goes right back to the same military industrial complex people, the same General Dynamics, the same Raytheon. It's always the same people, Boeing, getting this money, dispensing the arms, using up the arms, and then making more of the arms. But I supported Donald Trump during the election campaign. I still support a lot of the things he's doing. But I thought Doge was a great idea. Here we are, a Department of Government Efficiency.
Yes.
But, they're digging up all of these billions of dollars, and yet now we've got $1 trillion defense budget. And I'm saying, is there something wrong here? Is the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing?
Well, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Every president has increased the defense budget in my lifetime, and so, when Joe Biden was pulling out of Afghanistan, everybody was patting him on the back, and I said, "Well, let's wait and see what he's planning on doing with that money we've been spending on Afghanistan. Let's wait and see what he's going to do with it. What's his plan?" And of course, they had another war in the chamber. It was the Ukraine war that NATO provoked. And so, same thing with Donald Trump. He's like, well, he's not going to start another war. It looks like he's resisting anyway. And again, they're going to let him. And what did he just announce? He announced the Golden Dome project, which is going to be $1 trillion defense. They say it's only going to be 175 billion, but it's going to. We all know how that stuff goes. It's going to at least double, triple, or probably be $1 trillion. And it's a missile defense shield system that we don't need in the United States. So he might not do another war, but the people who really run the country are the military-industrial complex. And so he's got to give them their VIG, and that's exactly what's happening. So, yeah, I mean, all that Doge stuff seemed to be a big smokescreen. Everybody was on board for cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from the USAID and the National Endowment for Democracy, which were just CIA cutouts anyway. But he took all that money and he's given it right back to the Pentagon. So, in fact, even Elon Musk just crossed him. I don't know if you saw that most recently. He's talking about the big, beautiful bill, which is this budget bill that explodes the deficit by trillions of dollars. And he said, you can't have it big. It can be big or it can be beautiful. It can't be both. And he's right about that. So I think Elon Musk, most recently, he just walked away from Doge. And I think it's because he's starting to understand how government actually works. And I think he's kind of sickened by it, which we all are. So, yeah, I mean, we all had high hopes for Donald Trump coming in and being fiscally responsible and actually cutting the deficit. And people are willing to take cuts. If you're willing to cut the Pentagon, I mean, when he came into office, he was talking about cutting the Pentagon 50%. He talked about cutting it 50%. Well, that's all out the window. He's now increasing it by hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And so it doesn't look good for the U.S. economy. It doesn't look good at all. So, yeah, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And you know what's funny is that Doge never went to the Pentagon. The biggest, ground zero for waste, fraud, and abuse is the Pentagon. We all know that. They haven't been able to pass an audit ever in the history of the Pentagon. They can't pass an audit. So, but Doge didn't go to the Pentagon. And I had Steve Bannon on my show, and he said, you'll know they're serious about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse when they go to the Pentagon. And they didn't. Well, it just turns out Elon Musk is also a huge defense contractor. And, a lot of his wealth is tied to Tesla stock, which has been going down faster than a celebrity at a Diddy party. So maybe he's needing some of that defense money. So that's where we're at. Yeah, it's kind of sad.
Well, do you think Donald Trump is really working for peace? Because I look at the Middle East right now, and we seem to be on the verge of a regional war. We're still looking at a war between Ukraine and Russia. But the real question for me is that why are the liberals not concerned about nuclear war anymore? Because I remember the 1980s, and that you couldn't go 5 minutes without somebody talking about the risk of nuclear war, and Ronald Reagan was going to bring us into a nuclear war. It turned out actually Ronald Reagan was a president for peace. He worked with the Soviet Union, but everybody was worried about nuclear war in the 80s, and they were in the 60s. But yet we're closer to nuclear war now in Ukraine, potentially in the Middle East. And the liberals seem to want to push further and further towards escalation. And I don't understand it. Do you?
Yes, I do. It's because there's two things. They've couched it. They've couched being pro-war, being pro-war against with Ukraine against Russia as being anti-Donald Trump. So that immediately that pushes a button with the liberals. But the liberals also believe the TV news. They believe that MSNBC and CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times. They believe what they're saying is true. They haven't woken up to the fact that they're for by the same people who have uh, the the Fox News. It's the same people. It's the military-industrial complex. So when they turn on MSNBC or CNN, they think they're getting the news. They don't think they're propagandized. Americans are the most propagandized people in the world, and they don't know it. I make that point all the time. In North Korea, China, and the United States is the people in North Korea and China know they're being propagandized. The people in America think they're getting the news, and they're not. And there hasn't been a war in my lifetime that MSNBC and CNN has not been on board for. And so that's how, yeah, so that's how lefty liberals got turned into pro-war maniacs, is because they believe what they're hearing on the military-industrial complex and funded news, and it's also funded by the bank. It's big pharma, the banks, and the military-industrial complex. That's what funds our news, and they think they're getting the news when they're actually being propagandized. And that's been a big, project of my show, is to wake people up that you're not getting the news. You're getting propaganda, and you need to turn to independent shows like people like you, people like my show, that actually questions the pro-war narrative, and actually that doesn't. Then we figure out it doesn't make sense because we're not being funded by the same people that the corporate news is being funded by, and that's why they have to turn us into pariahs, and they have to call us misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, which is accurate information that just happens to go against the status quo and the establishment narrative. And that's why they have to call us terrorists. And that's why they have to debank us. Because if they can't control the narrative, they've lost everything. And you see it happening right now with Israel, right? So that's why Donald Trump came in and said the era of free speech has begun. And then he just replaced woke leftist censorship with woke right censorship. It's like, yeah, I'm all for free speech unless you criticize Israel, then you should have your tongue cut out and be deported. So it's just he replaced censorship with a different kind of censorship. And he's a cuck to Israel. And people that I know in MAGA, I have lots of MAGA people who come to my show. I have lefties and righties, and I have workers and union members and doctors and ex-military and lots of MAGA, and they come to my show. And not one of them that I've met at my show anyway are on board with Donald Trump being a cuck to Israel. They're not for the Zionism. They're not for the Israeli project. And so Donald Trump is actually going against his own base. He's not MAGA, he's MIGA, which is Make Israel Great Again.
I was a huge advocate for Israel my entire adult life. I spent a summer on a kibbutz. I've been very, very pro-Israel my entire life, but I can't stand by right now and watch what's happening in Gaza and just say, that's okay. It's okay. It's Israel doing it. So, all right, I'll put my hands up. But do you think Israel's going to drag the United States into a war with Iran? Because they seem adamant about
Yeah.
going it alone. And if they go it alone, they'll drag the U.S. in with them.
Yes, every war that we fought is according to Jeffrey Sachs, who I respect his opinion. He said, every war we've had in the last 25 years have been at the behest of Israel. So if you go back to the Iraq war, that was at the behest of Israel. If you go back to Libya, Syria, it's part of the greater Israel project, if you're familiar with what that is. And
Yes.
Benjamin, I'm on board for the state of Israel. I'm not on board for the greater Israel project. And this was always the end game. Even people like Piers Morgan are asking, what's the end game with Israel? They just want to ethnically cleanse Gaza, and that's always been the plan. They don't want to have a two-state solution. They certainly don't want to have a one-state solution, because if they did, it would be a majority Palestinian government, which they can't have. It's an ethno-state. It's an apartheid ethno-state, and that's not me saying that. That's every human rights organization in the world says that. So, yeah, I think we got to get rid of the people like the Benjamin Netanyahus. We at least, if we stop funding them, if the United States stopped funding Israel, they would be forced to be a good neighbor, and they would be forced to stop making war with everybody. And the Arab states are willing to have peace on a condition of a Palestinian state, which I don't think the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu will ever go along with. So yeah, I mean, I think they're doing everything they can to get us to do a war with Iran. And right now, Donald Trump is not negotiating a nuclear deal with Iran in good faith. They're setting parameters that they know Iran will never agree to as a pretext to go and do a war. So if Donald Trump does a war with Iran, his entire legacy is shot, because the whole point of people voting for him in the first place was because he was against the neocons, and he was against the wars. He was against Iraq. He went after Jeb Bush on a debate stage in 2016, and that turned everybody for him, because we want a non-interventionist. Everybody on the left and the right wants him to end those wars and invest that money back in the United States instead of giving it to the military-industrial complex. So, yeah, definitely looks like Netanyahu is going to do everything he can to get the United States into a war with Iran, because I don't, if you've ever heard General, why am I blanking on it? Wesley Clark. He gave a speech after 9/11. He saw a document at the Pentagon that there was a plan to go into 7 Muslim countries, and the last one on the list is Iran. So we've done all the other ones. We've done Lebanon, we've done Syria, we've done Libya, Somalia, Yemen, and now Iraq. And the last one on the list is Iran. And I truly believe he's going to do everything. It's going to take a Herculean effort for Trump to resist it. But I think people like Tulsi Gabbard and Hegseth know that if we go to war with Iran, it is not going to end like the one in Libya or the one in Syria or the one with Iraq. It's going to be Iran is not any of those countries. They have missiles that we don't have. They have hypersonic missiles. So it's not going to end
Yes.
good. And I think their advice to Trump is to not do it. So I hope he listens to them.
I hope he's listening too. He seems to take the advice of the last person he talked to. I know Colonel Doug McGregor
Yeah.
often says this. Who's actually worked in the Trump administration. He says he listens to the last person he talked to and follows his advice. So hopefully he's listening to somebody who doesn't want a nuclear war. But you've often talked about borderline stations on YouTube, Jimmy. I think I'm one of them. I think you believe you're one of them. And these are stations that you say that YouTube intentionally suppresses. Is there any way we can get around that through legislation? And because we don't even know how YouTube grades or actually costs the programs we're putting on. They award us so much money based on numbers we have to believe. Do you think there's any way we can legislate some sort of credibility to this process so they can't suppress stations they don't happen to like?
I mean, I'm sure there could be a legislation. I mean, if they have, if we have the First Amendment in the United States, so if they could just enforce the First Amendment, that'd be fantastic. Meaning, you have to let everybody talk unless they're breaking a law. That would be fantastic. But this is all about legacy media. They ran hit pieces in 2017 against YouTube, because YouTube shows like ours were competitors to the corporate media, and they were losing market share to independent journalism. And so they did hit pieces that said that they called us all Nazis and white supremacists and sexists, and that we were radicalizing young men. And so it spooked advertisers. And so YouTube is just as beholden to their advertisers as anybody. And so that's when they started to do algorithmic shenanigans and suppress. They brag about suppressing shows like mine and yours. They brag about, in fact, they have the metrics, and they can tell you how much fewer views we've gotten than the year before. And so I would like to see Trump do something, but I don't think he's going to do anything. People are still getting kicked off TikTok and Meta and Facebook left and right, and YouTube, by the way. So yeah, I don't see a strong put because those are the people who actually own the politicians. So it's not the other way around. We're governed by corporations in America, and the politicians don't actually do the will of the people. They do the will of their donors, and their donors are the corporations. So I don't have any faith. I've gone to Rumble. I've got over 350,000 people following me on Rumble now. They're the free speech platform, and I think that's the future. Although I'm still on YouTube, YouTube has the greatest, distribution system for shows that anybody's ever invented. So I'd be, foolish not to go on there. I just know how to get around the censorship pretty much. Although they still, suppress us. I'm getting probably about the same amount of views as I got when I had 500,000 subscribers. I have a 1.5 million now. So they've found a way to do that. But all you could do is fight on and get around the censorship, especially around COVID. But if you talk about war, they censor you. If you talk about Israel, Gaza, they censor you. If you talk about anything medical, they try to censor you. But there's nothing we could do, and I don't have any hope that politicians are going to come to our rescue.
You talk about the mainstream media being so controlling. I find them so delusional as well. I'm just amazed that people like Jake Tapper right now saying, "I'm shocked, shocked, shocked. There was gambling going on in Rick's place," when he suggests that he had no idea Joe Biden was suffering from such extreme dementia. Do you find this hypocrisy to be absolutely outrageous?
Yes, in fact, it's hurting Jake Tapper. But he wrote this book that's supposed to be blowing the lid off of how they covered up Joe Biden's dementia for 4 years. Hey, I knew Joe Biden was demented in 2019, and we started saying so on our show. And everybody, so if I knew it, I'm a C student, a nightclub comedian. I'm sure they knew it, and now it's come out that everybody knew it. And Jake Tapper was one of the loudest voices shaming people and censoring people who tried to tell the truth about his dementia. And so now he's trying to say, oh, no, we all got tricked by Joe Biden's White House. Okay. If you believe that, I've got a vaccine I'd like to sell you. So it's gone so bad for Jake Tapper, he actually had to hire a PR firm. So because people see right through him. So this is a bad idea for him to write the book, and it's a bad idea for him to go on a book tour. Any show he goes on right now that's independent is slamming him. But he won't come on shows like yours, and he won't come on shows like mine, that's for sure. He went on Megyn Kelly, and, even her being an establishment figure, even she slammed him for it. So, yeah, it's kind of funny to watch him go on this book tour.
My final question here is, how do you think comedy bridges the political divide? Because comedy for years, I'm thinking late night comedy, and I remember, and I'm old enough to remember Johnny Carson when he was number one at night. And his comedy transcended politics. He attacked both sides, but in a way that wasn't cruel. But you look at so many of these late night comics are cruel, and it's all political. It's hard political humor, and I've noticed over the years that people don't laugh anymore at late night comics. They clap. They don't
Yes,
laugh because it's not funny. But
right.
so how does your comedy does bridge the political stuff? How does it do that?
Well, I wouldn't call what they're doing on late night television comedy. I would call what they're doing is partisan comedy. It's partisanship. They're appealing to a bunch of trained seals with an applause sign over their head. That's what's happening. So yeah, comedy is supposed to bring people together. You're supposed to, we have a commonality. That's what I say. People on the left and the right, we share. It turns out that we have more in common than divides us, and people like Jimmy Kimmel want us divided because he's a tool of the establishment, or else he wouldn't have that show. If he actually told everybody, hey, we have more in common than divides us, and we should come together along class lines to oppose the oligarchy, he wouldn't have that show. He has that show because, he's like Johnny Bravo. the suit fits, right? And so he's the perfect shill to go do the bidding of the establishment, which is big pharma, the military-industrial complex, the banking system. He's their perfect mouthpiece, and he gets people to pretend. He gets people to divide. He gets people to blame their neighbor and hate their neighbor for the pain they're feeling that's being caused by the same oligarchs. By the way, the donor class in the United States, the same donors that fund the Democrats and the donors that fund the Republicans, they all work together behind the scenes. They're not enemies. They all have a common interest, and they know to keep this left-right divide going serves their interest, and that's why they hire tools like Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert to do their bidding. Somebody has a tweet out right now. It's up on my Twitter thread. I think it was Mays put it out that if they showed Stephen Colbert when Donald Trump was president, he was telling people to question the vaccine and question big pharma. Then, as soon as Joe Biden became president, he's doing dance routines about take your vaccine. This is the vaccine. The vax is great for everybody, and you're an idiot if you don't take it. So this is just partisanship. So they're not actual. When you're doing comedy, you're not a partisan. If you are a partisan, you're not a comedian. And if you're not telling people to challenge the status quo and the establishment narrative, you're also not doing comedy. You're doing propaganda. And that's what all the late night shows have turned into, propaganda. They're not comedy. So I can't stomach them. I don't know how anybody can.
And that's you did a skit during the height of the YouTube social media purge in the UK when Keir Starmer was throwing people in prison for daring to question anything in that country. You did a wonderful skit with the guy who came on posing as the British cop. And I sent that to so many people. It was just so hilarious. But I think that was a better expose and a better way of dealing with this totalitarian approach to free speech in the UK than anything else. So, I love the work you're doing. And of course, we have a new prime minister in Canada, Mark Carney, who is actually outspending Justin Trudeau, we just learned this week. And this is the guy who said he's going to come in and cut government spending, and he's going to stop the hiring of more government workers, and he's going to spend money on defense. And as soon as I heard I'm going to spend money on defense, I thought, yeah, and it's going to go right to Ukraine, and it's going to go right to the European Union. And Mark Carney, do not be fooled by Mark Carney. He is Justin Trudeau in a better suit, in a Savile Row suit.
I mean, you went from Fidel Castro's kid to an international banker. It just gets worse and worse.
It just gets worse and worse. Exactly. So how can people get tickets to your shows? And we'll have that in the description, but how do they do it?
Well, we're all sold out in Toronto, but I think there's some tickets still available in Ottawa. Go to jimmydore.com. That's the best link. It'll give you the cheapest tickets cheapest price for tickets. Don't go anywhere else. Go to jimmydore.com, click the link, and I'll see you in Ottawa.
Yes, we will see you in Ottawa. Thank you for your time this morning. It's so appreciated. I'm a huge fan, and if you ever want me on your show, I'm available to talk about any Canadian subject there is out there. And we love you here, Jimmy. We really do.
Okay, I appreciate that. We'll take you up on it, David. Great to talk with you.
See you Sunday. Bye for now.
Okay, bye, buddy.
And that was Jimmy Dore. Yes, and that was Jimmy Dore. I'm back. We've got another video to show you in a second here, but go to his website, get tickets. There's lots of tickets available in the second and third row. We've got the information in the description if you can't find it. I will be there, and we're going to do an interview after the show. We're going to be talking about some Canadian issues as well as US. But this is a guy who brings comedy to politics. And believe me, the more I study and the more I live politics, the more I realize it's the worst comedy out there, or perhaps the best comedy out there. I want to show you this video here of Pierre Poilievre. And when I watched this last night, or actually early this morning, I thought, what does this remind me of? And if you ever remember the old SCTV skit with John Candy doing Tommy Shanks, the mayor of Mellonville. And of course, he comes on the show and he says, "Hi, how you doing? doing pretty well myself. And I thought, this is the new Pierre Poilievre. Now, but what he says here is quite good because he outlines how Mark Carney is spending more money than Justin Trudeau. And he's lying about it. But this is definitely a different persona for Pierre Poilievre. And it's interesting. That's all I'm going to say. But what he says here is quite profound.
You got to hand it to them. Liberals are masters of symbolism. See, in the recent election, to convince people that they were no longer the party of reckless spenders, they abruptly replaced a leader who looked like a reckless teenage trust fund baby with a stern-looking banker. The jet black, carefully groomed hair replaced the uncombed surfer dude hairstyle. The corporate dress shoes replaced the childish running shoes. The MBA lingo replaced the dreamy rhetoric. The spend less, invest more slogan replaced the budgets will balance themselves rhetoric of Justin Trudeau. Wow, what a change. But do the numbers back up the symbolism? Well, we found out this week. Prime Minister Carney tabled his first spending package before the House of Commons, called the main estimate. See, government has to get the approval of the House of Commons to do any spending. So they put forward this package, and it will stack up against the previous Trudeau spending. And to be fair, Mr. Carney's spending is not as bad as Trudeau's. It's worse. To start with, we know that he inherited a morbidly obese Liberal government, and he promised to, quote, spend less. But his first spending bill will increase costs by 8% more than Trudeau did in his last year in office. Let's get this straight. Justin Trudeau doubled our national debt and nearly doubled the cost of government. And Mark Carney was elected to bring those costs down. And in the first year after taking office, the year when you would expect him to take action against those out of control costs, he actually increased them by 8%. In fact, the spending will grow almost 3 times faster than the combined rate of inflation and population growth. It is a $500 billion spending bill with no budget. Single moms, seniors, and small businesses must budget before they spend. How come this supposedly brilliant banker cannot do the same, especially after he went around the country claiming to be the man with the plan? And no, this new spending is not, quote, investment, as he likes to say. Consultants, for example, get a record-smashing $26 billion, up 36% in just 1 year. That's over $1,400 for every household in Canada in federal government consultants for the coming year. Spending on bureaucracy is up 6% to $63 billion. Again, almost doubling the pace of inflation and population growth. He literally promised in his Tuesday morning throne speech to cap operating spending at 2% per year. And then the afternoon of the same day, his government introduced a bill that would boost the overall spending by 8%. In other words, 4 times higher than he had promised that morning. Liberals changed the face at the top. You know, they plagiarized conservative economic speeches and messages. But all that really matters is the numbers. And the numbers don't lie. This is the same Liberal spending by the same Liberal team, which will bring the same Liberal debt, Liberal inflation, and Liberal taxes. It will mean our youth are still unable to afford homes, mothers lined up at food banks, seniors choosing between eating and heating. You know, you'll have to think twice before you even go for a little cup of coffee. So what do we do about it? Well, Conservatives are going to use our increased numbers in the House of Commons. We got an extra 24 seats and 2.4 million votes to fight for a lower cost government and more money in your pocket. We want cuts to bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down debt, taxes, and inflation. We'll put hard caps on government spending. Instead of printing money, we'll empower Canadians to produce more of the stuff money buys: energy, homes, food, and more. That will bolster purchasing power with bigger paychecks that retain their buying power. We want to put you back in charge of your life and your money. We don't need a change in hairstyle in Canada. Not a new suit or a nice pair of shoes or even a fancy resume. What we need is a change in direction.
Yeah, that was great. He's even sipping coffee with us now. So I don't know if I went too far with that analogy to Tommy Shanks from SCTV. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. What a character. And I love that. I love that character. But Pierre, I think, has definitely shifted his persona to be a little more personable, a little less in your face, but it might be working. And this is maybe what he wants to do. As long as the message stays the same, as long as he's continuing to talk about principled conservative ideas and policies. That's the important thing. Now, I'll be back in a minute to wrap up, but yes, I've got to show you. I got to show you the store. I'll be right back. Yeah, thanks for watching that, and it means a lot for you folks to be watching the show every day. YouTube sat on that broadcast again today to make sure the numbers didn't go too high. So please share this with your friends and family. Let's beat this YouTube suppression, this YouTube censorship. Let's beat it because they want to shove it in our faces, and I'm saying no. I'm fighting back, because we don't want to lose stations out there simply because CBC doesn't like them and YouTube can't say no to CBC. We're going to fight back. I'm on again later this afternoon with Spencer from Make Canada Great Again. These shows have proven very popular. I love talking to Spencer. It's a great conversation. It's not an interview, it's a conversation between committed journalists. Thank you for watching today. Buy one of these hats. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jimmy Dore. Go to his show if you're in the Montreal area or the Ottawa area. Sold out in Toronto, but there are seats available in Ottawa. Have a look at the description so you can buy yours. Thanks for watching today. God bless this country. Godspeed to all of you.